Now, getting into the session proper. It is my privilege and honor to present the speakers for this afternoon's session. First up, we have Mzila Mthenjane, who is the CEO of Minerals Council South Africa. Mr. Mzila Mthenjane is the current Executive Head for Stakeholder Affairs at Exxaro Resources Limited and CEO Designate for the Minerals Council of South Africa. He has more than 30 years' experience in business, mainly in the mining and financial service sectors. He has held board positions as non-executive director in various entities, including Pamodzi Gold Limited, Fraser Alexander, and Merafe Resources. He is the current chairman of the board of Impact Catalyst and is the former chairman of the Wits University Mining Engineers Association and the former president of the South African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy. He holds a BSc degree in mining engineering from Wits and has completed various leadership development training. At Exxaro, he is tasked with building and retaining harmonious yet robustly engaging relationships with Exxaro's diverse stakeholder groupings. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the first speaker for this session, Mr. Mzila Mthenjane.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Can we have the slide, please? Thank you very much. As presented, my name is Mzila Mthenjane. I have taken up the role of CEO of Minerals Council, coming out of Exxaro, with effect from the 21st of August, a rather odd date. It is my first time at Africa Down Under, and quite a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for receiving me. In preparing the presentation, I thought I would share with you just some of my thoughts around how I think, and actually at a personal level, feel about the mining, minerals, and metals industry. I've grown in this industry, as indicated, for the past 20 years or so, as well as dabbling in financial services. And we really at a point where we should be asking ourselves, or can be asking ourselves, could this time be the true opportunity for Africa to rise? Our continent has been forever bubbling with potential, and today we stand at the beginning of our most promising industrial and mineral revolution that can translate the potential to a better life for all. Where's the clicker? Oh, sorry. Hope I get this right. Great. Just some key points to note as I go through the presentation. Over the past 4 years, the industry has endured rapid changes, ranging from COVID-19 pandemic, commodity cycle booms and busts. The geopolitics have also posed significant challenges to mining companies as they navigate very complex markets and the economy. However, past experiences in terms of governance, especially, and policy regimes, which the sector has navigated in these difficult times, present an opportunity to really improve going forward and to chart a better course to the benefit of Africa in particular. We recognize that it is an imperative at this juncture to have good development policies and realize more economic and social benefits from our natural resources in order to move forward in what is often referred to as the just transition. These three salient points feature phenomenally in my presentation this morning or this afternoon. As you'll see from this slide, geopolitics are realigning, resulting in strategic shifts and security balances. There have been shifting economic blocks, as you've seen recently with BRICS inviting another 6 members and more lining up to join. We're seeing the impact of the new climate change, industrial revolution, both positive and negative, and the extent to which will depend on how we respond. Governance issues, which are emphasized significantly in this presentation as far as what is really needed for us to see the success of this critical minerals revolution. And lastly, and alongside climate change, the need for continued research and development. The challenge for mining companies to build flexible businesses that can deal with fluctuations from unstable prices, uncertain demand and supply conditions, and the threat of product substitution in this rapid technological development, given long lead times on projects. And you throw climate change and governance issues into the mix, and the sector finds itself in this rapidly evolving world with lots of uncertainties. What this map is trying to show is that from a mineral production perspective, the developing world has not really realized its full production and economic potential. And this first image shows the share of global production for select minerals throughout the world. In essence, developing countries are geographically vast and well endowed with vast, I should echo and repeat, mineral resources. However, we probably have not even scratched the surface of what still lies beneath, and hence developing countries account for little of the global production. The next slide, a redrawn picture of, or caricature I should add, of the previous map, shows in GDP terms per country. And this is how geographical size is, we're trying to match it with GDP. And clearly it's obvious that it does not translate into the benefits that one would expect from our minerals, as we've seen in the previous slide. This asymmetric relationship between geographical size, mineral resource and production, and the outcomes in terms of GDP are concerning. It is no surprise then from the suggestion of a drive to shift power and realign the global order to the benefit of developing nations who are richly endowed but are seeing very little realization in terms of wealth creation. And this is depicted in this slide in terms of the BRICS expansion that I spoke about earlier on. And this slide could be viewed through the lens of this attempt to shift the semblance of power and correct the asymmetric relationship. Mining in the minerals and metals sector, so let me try that again. Mining in the minerals and metals the sector supplies is vitally important to most countries and their manufacturing and many other capabilities. The benefits of this reorganization are yet to be seen. Moving on, despite the drive towards realignment, trade between Africa and BRICS and the rest of the world remains small. Here the question should be whether we benefit enough from the current trade systems which are balanced in favor of more developed countries. The opportunities for mining to capture more of the value of international trade through value addition and beneficiation remain significant. If we can tap into more points along the supply chains of industries, such as the automotive and the tech-based manufacturing industries which utilize metals and minerals in their production processes, then we could begin to see Africa benefit more broadly from trade, apart from mere exports of raw materials. The energy transition certainly holds this promise in hand. However, few countries dominate this critical minerals value chain. This slide illustrates the asymmetry between mineral endowment or production and economic benefit within the context we set earlier on. The picture on the left shows there is some potential for more production to come out of Africa, given, of course, the governance requirements and other challenges that we really do need to overcome. Africa is richly endowed with minerals and should surely be accounted for a larger share of global mineral production. And when you look at the graph on the right-hand side, which shows how countries still need to be cognizant of how they could benefit if they realign and prioritize Africa. Most of the global refinement capacity is situated in China, and this makes realizing the benefits from minerals through value addition rather tricky, almost as if the shifting alignment merely swings the pendulum away from one group towards another, leaving Africa still in the missing middle. On this slide, I make the point again in terms of the asymmetries that I mentioned earlier. African countries account for a greater share of resources for important minerals and metals, yet the countries do not realize enough benefits. However, a huge opportunity for Africa is presented. Capitalizing on these resources and positioning itself well, the continent could reap the benefits in years to come. And we're seeing from this slide that part of the reason Africa is not realizing some of its potential is attributable to the lack of exploration in the continent. But I might hasten to add that this is not for a shortage of global capital. In my beloved country, South Africa, if I can refer to it that way, despite our aspirations in 2022, in the 2022 exploration for the mining industry to secure 5% share of global exploration expenditure, our performance is still lagging in this regard, but I'll assure you that efforts are certainly in play to shift from the current levels of 1% since 2017 compared to much higher numbers that we've seen in other African countries. Suffice it for me to say that more exploration spend on the continent could be a game changer for the industry and help realize more of the benefits from all minerals and not just critical minerals, given the development imperative of the continent. And these include, amongst others, economic stimulus and diversification of our economies, energy security through increased investment from renewable energy generation, which will enable the energy transition, and, if I'd like to add, empower communities to adapt to changing climate conditions and embark on a just transition in locations where mines are located, but also of future clean energy and productive land use post-mining through what we call economic succession planning. The Fraser Institute recently published its annual survey, and on this graph we show Africa's mineral potential declining given the policy perception from investors. While this is notable, I think given where we stand today, this is perhaps also about to change and reverse. This picture obviously explains the previous slide as to why exploration on the continent is low. The perceptions around Africa as a mining jurisdiction are deteriorating, and governance issues compound the problem. It is the overall perception as captured by the Survey Institute, by the Fraser Institute, but should not take away from the individual country improvements, such as what we saw this morning from Botswana. Investment-considerate policies matter, and the Fraser Institute's global survey of perceptions of policies conducive to mining shows that Africa is not realizing its potential by not having conducive policies for mining exploration, investment, and development. I dare say that the logic for beneficial mining has not changed. Good governance is not a substitute, and prudent economic policies are imperative and remain the recipe for beneficial mining development and can be the basis for a country's development. And we're beginning to see this from several countries in the continent. And South Africa is such one example, if I may quote one, where mining lifted the state from a rural, almost subsistence agrarian economy to a modern and industrialized economy. The mineral potential of South Africa remains, and in addition to other benefits such as a sophisticated financial sector and capital markets, as well as advanced infrastructure, which I confess requires a lot of work. Moving on, and whilst it's important that we have governance and policies that inspire mining, it's also important to look through the whole value chain of mining, because each stage of mining development needs conducive policies and a favorable governance framework, given the unique financing requirements of mining to maintain its rhythm and beat that can yield the positive impact of a country's dance, if I can play on that metaphor, meaning its people, and the fiscus through beneficiation and export earnings. And specifically on South Africa, you'll all be aware of the challenges we face with our infrastructure. But I stand here, having taken over the leadership of the Minerals Council, very confident of what we're seeing in terms of the partnership between business and government, particularly with the role of the mining industry playing a leading role in that. We are intent as an industry and business on addressing the country's unique challenges in terms of logistics, energy, and crime. And what you're seeing in this slide is really just the extensive nature of the partnership between business and government in addressing these issues, and we begin to see some changes. The involvement of the most senior leaders in the mining sector is also apparent, as you'll see at the bottom, where the President of the Minerals Council, Ms. Nolita Fakuda, is leading on the energy, work stream, previous CEO of Exara and also a previous president of the Minerals Council on the logistics, and then a previous past president as well, or Deputy President Neil Froneman, who's leading on the crime and corruption. So in conclusion, as the world economic map is being redrafted, the mining industry in Africa and globally needs to continue to have a significant contribution to these shifts. Mining minerals and metals will be a catalyst, but they will also play an ongoing critical role in enabling economic development and diversification, social development, and progress towards a low-carbon future as we begin to explore and exploit critical minerals. Therefore, as an industry, we must remain resilient in the face of this change, provide the required leadership to our communities and society, build the necessary partnerships for collaboration with governments, communities, labor, employees, and all our stakeholders for responsible and accountable growth and the realization of a better life for all. Thank you very much.